Welcome back. Now, we have the ability to damage drones, but we like the drones to be able to damage us. And that means we'll need a way to see our health. And that's where the health bar comes in. We're going to add a progress bar to our character HUD and see how we can set the percentage of this HUD from blueprints. So here's my character HUD. And in the palette tab, we see that there's a progress bar widget type. So I'm going to drag in a progress bar. And it looks like this black rectangle, but I can resize it and make it look just how I want it. And I notice that it's anchored to the top left, which is what I want. So that's perfect. Now, I'm going to rename this progress bar to health bar. And notice at the top right, in the details panel, we see this checkbox for is variable. That means this widget blueprint will consider our health bar a variable, which means we can access and change properties of it. And the properties I'm interested in changing are the percent. Under progress, we see percent. And we can change the value of this. And notice as I increase it, the health bar here is filling up. Now, this is a value from 0 to 1, 0 being empty and 1 being full. Now, the health bar has other parameters, such as we can change the fill image, the marquee image, we can change the colors of these. I leave that as an exercise to you. What I'm interested in is changing this health percent. So now that we have our health bar and it's set to about 61% full, let's compile and hit play. And we see our health bar up here. Now, we see a message that says reflection captures need to be rebuilt. That's because we've changed geometry in our world and haven't rebuilt the lighting. We'll do that soon enough. But we have our health bar, and it's set to around 61%. We want to be able to set this from blueprints. So let's go back to FPS character. And we have a damage variable for our character, but our character doesn't have health. We're going to need a health variable. So let's add a new float and call this health. And I'm also going to add a second float and call this one max health. So if we have a health and a max health, then we can get the percentage or fraction by dividing health by max health. Let's compile and give health a default value, let's say 50. And let's give max health a default value, say 100. Now we need to be able to set the percent on our health bar in the character HUD. Well, if we look back at begin play here, we see that we're creating the widget here and we're adding it to the viewport. But we could easily store this HUD in a variable. I'm going to take the return value from our create widget node, right click, and promote to variable. And now we have a variable. I'm going to simply name this variable HUD. And I'm now storing my new widget that I've created in the variable HUD. And I can simply pass this in to add to viewport. And it looks like I still have that old line here. So I'm going to hold Alt and click to break that and make sure I've only got my variable itself plugged into add to viewport. And of course, I need to connect this. So we have this HUD variable referencing our character HUD. We can access that and change properties on it. Let's say we'd like to access the progress bar. Well, I can get our HUD and drag off of this and type health bar, and we see that we have a getter and a setter for health bar. I'm going to get the health bar, and I'm able to do this thanks to this progress bar being a variable, as we see here in the details panel. Now to set the percent, we have to take our health bar and type in percent, and we see that there's a function called set percent. And we also have the option to get the percent. Set percent takes in a float, which needs to be a value between 0 and 1. So for your challenge, you're going to get some practice setting the health percentage. And begin play, access the HUD using our variable. We can't access it until after we've already set it, so keep that in mind. Set the health bar percentage to 0.5. You can hard code that in, or you can divide health by max health since our health is set to 50 and our max health is 100. Pause the video and give this a try. All right, so we've already done most of the work here. We just need to connect this node, and I'm going to take my health, get that. I'm going to take my max health, get that, and divide these two. So I'm going to use a divide node and hook that up to in percent. And 50 divided by 100 gives me 0.5. So that should fill up my health bar halfway. Let's compile and play. And my health bar is half full. And it looks an awful lot like it did before when it was 0.61. So, if I really want to prove it to myself, I can set this to a lower value like 0.1 and play test that. And I see that it's about 10% full. So that looks great. So I'm going to Control Z to go back to what I had here, setting my health percent to health divided by max health, since that's the actual percentage of my character's health. Now, before we wrap this up, I'm going to show you another nice way to organize our nodes. Notice here in Begin Play, we're doing one thing after another, after another, after another, and this is becoming strung out into a bunch of sequential nodes. There's a way to organize this a bit better. Let's drag these up, and from Begin Play, I'm going to drag off and type Sequence, and choose a Sequence node. And notice, Sequence says then 0, then 1, and if we want, we can add a new pin, and we see then 2. And Sequence node is simple. Whatever we have hooked up to then 0 will be executed first. When that's all done, then 1 will execute. Whatever's hooked up to this execution pin will be executed next. Then 2, then 3, and so on. So the first thing we can do is set the animation blueprint. And the next thing we can do is set our HUD. So we're going to go ahead and break the pins and move these nodes down here. And in fact, we can collapse these to a function. I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to right click, collapse to function, and call this set HUD. And we're going to stick that right here for then 1. Now, the next thing we were doing was setting the percent for our health bar. We're going to bring that over here. And why not? Let's collapse this to a function and call this set health. And we'll go ahead and hook that up to then 2. Now take a look at this. Doesn't our Begin Play look so much better? Excellent. So in this lecture, we created a health bar, and we now have a way to see how much health our character has, but we're still not taking damage. We're going to cover that in the next lecture. I'll see you soon.